Do you ever feel like there's something inside of you that is holding you back in life? Because recently I started to feel like this. Even though I love my work, I love this business, I love working as a coach, but I got hit with a wave of depression. Have you ever felt this? Like you just feel generally meh about life. That was, and this is the reason I'm making this video, that was until I found an inner work exercise that was so profound, so significant, and so effective that it completely managed to transform things and change things around for me. And in this video, mate, I want to share with you what that exercise is, where it comes from, how it can benefit you directly, and I'm also going to break down into 4 really easy steps so that you can start doing it pretty much right away. I'm also giving you guys a free template that I've put together at the end that you can download and do yourself. Now, to explain the power of this exercise, mate, I want you to imagine something for me. I want you to imagine that your mind is a big house party. And all the different people at the party represent the different parts of your mind. We've got Mr. Anxious over there. We've got Mr. Addict, who likes a drink. We've also got, in my case, Mr. Meh. Now, you're the host. So in order for this party to go smoothly, you got to make sure that the guests are happy. They've got enough to eat. They've got enough to drink. Decent music is playing. Everyone's sort of talking and mingling and getting along. But then, suddenly, let's say you go to the bathroom and you come back and you notice a weird vibe in the house. The party was going well, but you come back and now all of a sudden, you've got Mr. Anxious sitting alone in a corner, not talking to anyone, frozen, stiff, shaking. You've got Mr. Addict, who's just there pounding Jack Daniels on his own at the table in the kitchen. You've got Mr. Meh, in my case, just bringing the whole vibe down, bringing the mood down, being really depressing. Next thing you know, the party is not a party anymore. It's dying, and no one's having a good time. But here's the thing with this metaphor. Unlike a real party, the guests cannot leave, and neither can you. This is all happening within your own mind. So, as the host, it's up to you to go up to these people in the party, go up to these characters, negotiate with them, find out what they're after, find out what's upsetting them, so that they can get all their needs met and so that everyone can start talking again and be happy, and so that the party can be a fun place to be again. But the real question is, how do you actually do this? How do you negotiate with all the people at your party? Well, here's how most people do it, and here's exactly why that fails. Most people in this situation, they try to aggressively force all of the people in their party to have a good time. They try to force themselves to do things. They try to crack the whip and be aggressive with themselves. This is the equivalent of you going downstairs and being like, right, everyone, have a good time, have fun right now, or I'm going to hurt you. That's how most people handle their inner world. And here's what happens. They might get some results. The people at the party might behave themselves because they're afraid for a moment, but no one's having a good time, and this result is usually very, very temporary. So what do we need? We need a way of negotiating with everybody in a compassionate way, making sure that everyone's getting their needs met and everyone is happy, so that the party is a place they really want to be, so that your inner world, in this metaphor, is a calm, fun place. Well, that's where this exercise comes in. The exercise is called Active Imagination, and it comes from the book Inner Work by Robert Johnson. Now, the main premise of the exercise is that you use your imagination to dialogue with the different parts of your mind that are causing the trouble. And if this sounds a little bit woo-woo or a bit impractical or a bit vague or a bit bullshit that you're just making things up, just stick with me, man, because I'm going to talk to you about how to break that down and how to actually do this in a very practical way. But first, I want to just talk to you about how I did it. I sat there, I allowed my imagination to serve me up the problem that I was struggling with. And next thing you know, I'm imagining myself on a beautiful beach. I can hear the water, I can see the waves, and I can feel the sand underneath me. It's very powerful what the imagination can do. But then, this was like pretty standard stuff, but I wasn't ready for what came next, man. Because suddenly my unconscious mind decided to show me an image that I didn't predict, I didn't make it up. I looked over to my left in the visualization, and there was a woman, a beautiful woman in a red, it was like a Middle Eastern Persian robe. It was red, gold embroidered, and she was like fully dressed, even though it was a beach. She had green eyes, and she was very, very like wise looking. She was like she was a guide or something. And in the book, it suggests that you dialogue with different parts of you. You have a conversation. You invite them to talk to you. So I did this with her. And what she shared with me completely floored me, man. It's exactly what I needed to hear. But I didn't know it at the time. She, in a nutshell, I won't go through the whole conversation, but she, in a nutshell, communicated to me that I had lost connection to my heart in what I'm doing. And honestly, when she shared that with me in the visualization even, I felt a strong surge of emotion. I got emotional. I genuinely did, because I was like, for some reason, it might not sound profound to you, that kind of revelation, but to me it was a genuine revelation, because she was absolutely right. I started making videos in 2016 just because I loved it. It was not about the subscribers. It was not about the business. It was about just sharing what was true for me, sharing something that hopefully might help somebody. So I got the message. So that's me. But let's talk about you. How do you actually do active imagination? Well, in the book, he breaks it down into 4 steps, but I've tweaked these steps for simplicity and for clarity. So the first step is what we call invitation. So what you essentially need to do is you need to get quiet, you need to get calm, you need to set an intention for what you're going to focus on in the session. Let's say, for example, you've got a problem, you're self-sabotaging, you're procrastinating, or you might even be anxious or whatever. Whatever the problem is, pick something that you're going to work on in the session. And then when you're sat there, you take some deep breaths and you allow your attention to go to the imagination and start to bring up some images for you. The image could be represented as a character in a movie, it could be a cartoon, it could be an animal, it could be anything. It's like really quite astounding what the unconscious mind can give you in terms of an image. But if you stick with it, it will almost always give you some sort of image if you ask it. Step 2 is dialogue. So now that you've got the image and you keep it in your mind and it's there, what you now want to do is dialogue with it. You want to talk to it. Now here's where I really like this exercise. You're essentially going to write out the dialogue. So you can do this with a pen and paper if you want, but I actually recommend that you do it with a laptop and keyboard and you load up a Google Doc or something, because your keys can, your fingers can move faster so that, the handwriting doesn't slow you down basically. But what you'll essentially do is you'll set it out like a movie script. So you'll be like, there's me, that's you talking, and then there'll be whatever the figure is. So for instance, it was me and I just put her. And so I was talking back and forth. That's me asking a question and then it's her response. And you will basically go back and forth with this dialogue for most of the time. And you can ask certain questions like, why are you here? When did you first show up? What are you afraid of? What do you want? You can actually talk to this part of you as if it's an actual person right in front of you. And when you ask this part of you what to do, this part will answer with an answer that's so personal to you that no one else can give you, no YouTube video or anything. And those are the answers that are the most important. So step 3 is negotiation. So let's say you've had a little conversation with a part of you, and maybe this part of you says something that could be dangerous, or this part of you says something that would be out of balance with the rest of your life, for example. Well, here's where you would have to negotiate with that part of you. Now, for example, let's say you struggle with procrastination, you're procrastinating on a task, studying or whatever, and you negotiate with the procrastinator in your mind. And you say to the procrastinator, hey, if you're willing to give me 30 minutes of focused work, I'll give you 15 minutes of a video game. And let's say the procrastinator really enjoys that. It's like, yes, absolutely, brilliant. 15 minutes of guilt-free video gaming, let's do that. Well, that's the negotiation. And step 4 is what we would just call integration or action. Listening to these parts speak, doing this whole process, and then not taking action on it, that's the equivalent of you listening to a bunch of people at the party, them telling you what the problem is, and then you going upstairs and slamming the door and not listening to them and being on your own and refusing to help anyone at the party. What you need to do is you need to listen to what the part says to you, negotiate the path forward, and then you have to absolutely do that. You have to uphold your end of the bargain. So let's say that part of you did say 15 minutes of a video game in exchange for 30 minutes of focused work. Well, what you absolutely cannot do is work for 3 hours and do no video games, because you've got to take this part of your unconscious mind seriously, man, because it's real, right? If you don't play those video games, if you don't uphold your end of the bargain, that part of you won't trust you anymore. That part of you won't listen to you. It's going to make the negotiation part way harder in the future. Play that damn video game if it gives you 30 minutes. So those are the 4 steps. But one thing I do need to address, mate, one thing that I really struggled with personally is, am I just making all this up? You know, as I'm sat here doing an active imagination session, am I just making up a bunch of shit that doesn't make any sense? Well, actually, in the book, Robert Johnson does talk about this. He addresses this directly. He says that anything that you can make up comes from your own mind anyway. So even though you might feel like you're making it up, nothing that you can imagine comes from a place that's outside of you anyway. He talks about a client he had who tried to play a little prank by making up a bunch of shit. But then when actually they talked about the thing he made up, it was actually so personal to him and so deeply healing that the guy burst into tears like, oh my God, this is actually everything that I feel about my life right now. So give yourself permission to sit there and to make things up if you want to. Now, if you're ready to dive into this practice immediately, I recently created a 6-part guided visualization active imagination series. You can check that out on my website, just click the link below. And I also created a free document that you can duplicate and you can use for this exercise. Download that below as well. See you in the next video. Stay courageous.